Hello and welcome to another Notch tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you the latest ray trace features in Notch. I'm going to run through setting up a simple ray trace scene in Notch. We're going to go through the steps of adding ray tracing to a scene. We're going to be looking at adding ray trace skylights, how to add a HDRI image to the ray trace skylight to light a simple scene with some simple objects in it. We're also going to look at ray trace reflections, at how to use the denoise node, and we're going to look at how to refine the scene once it's all set up. We're also going to look at this more complex scene, how it was set up, and how all the ray tracing nodes were used to get it to work. So first of all, let's start by looking at how to set up a simple ray trace scene. So we're going to start off with a blank Notch scene. First thing we want to do is select the root node. On the root node, if you go to the attributes, you can see right at the bottom, there's a checkbox for enabling the ray tracing. If you check that, ray tracing will be enabled on the scene. The next thing we want to do is we want to bring some lighting into the scene. So I'm going to bring in a skylight to the scene. So type in sky, drag the skylight in and connect that up to the root node. The skylight also has ray tracing. If you go to the attributes of the skylight, you can see there's another checkbox. If you check that, ray tracing will be enabled on the skylight as well. You can also see here there's ray trace samples. By changing the sample count, it will change the number of samples calculated for every frame. We'll leave this at around 4. So obviously we've set up our scene, we've got a ray trace skylight, but there's nothing to see in the scene, and that's because we need some objects in the scene. So we're going to bring in some shape 3Ds. So we'll bring in a sphere. And we'll also bring in a box and connect that up to the root node. You can see the scene's quite noisy. The reason it's noisy is because these are the actual rays for the ray tracing, calculating the lighting in the scene. They're calculating all the shadowing and all the highlights throughout the scene. If I move my mouse in the viewport window, you can see that the noise starts to disappear and the actual lighting gets better. This is the scene refining. We also have a refine render button here. And if we click that, it constantly refines the scene when the mouse isn't moving. So if we rotate the scene, it goes back to being noisy. But if we stop, the scene will then refine. And this is a good way of being able to view the scene, see how the lighting's looking, and it's quite optimal in its performance. So I'm going to add a floor to this scene. So now you can see the lighting, and every time you move, the scene is noisy. When you stop, the scene becomes refined. The next thing I want to do to this scene is I want to add some HDRI lighting to the scene. If we bring in a HDRI image and connect that up to an environment map. So I connect that to the root node, connect that up, and then I'm going to pipe the environment map into the skylight. So now the scene is using the HDRI image to calculate all the lighting and shadowing in the scene. And as you can see, it's quite bright. So what I'll do is I'm going to reduce down the colors of these objects so it's not so bright. So now we've got the HDRI lighting ray traced in the scene. We want to add some reflections into the scene. So I'm going to use the RT mirror reflection node. I'm going to bring that into the scene. I'm going to connect that up to the root node. Now you can see it started to reflect some of the objects in the scene, but we want it to reflect the environment map as well. So we can attach that to the objects. Now you can see both the environment map and the objects are reflected within each other. I'm also going to add a skybox to the scene, drag that in, connect it to the root node and connect the environment map to it. And then we can see where the lighting is coming from. I'm just going to change the color of these objects slightly. And now we have ray trace lighting in the scene. So on the RT mirror reflection node, you also have a denoising and refinement checkbox. And if you check that, the denoising and the refinement becomes even better on all the reflections. So if I rotate around on the scene, you can see if you leave it, the denoising kicks in and the refinement kicks in and the scene starts looking very polished. So ray tracing reflections is quite expensive. So a great optimization technique is to occlude other objects from the ray trace reflections. So say you wanted this sphere to have mirror reflections and you didn't want mirror reflections on any of the other objects. What you can do is connect the sphere node to the ray traced reflections, and all the other objects in the scene will now not have any reflections. This is a great way of optimizing scenes if you just want reflections on parts of an object or parts of a scene. So we've looked at how refining works on the scene. Now we're going to look at how denoising works on the scene using the ray trace denoiser node. So obviously refining works in the scene, so it continuously refines the scene while you're working on it. This helps speed up the viewport when ray tracing is enabled. So the ray trace denoiser works slightly differently to this. The ray trace denoiser is a little bit quicker, and it's also something you use on your real-time projects. So let's add the ray trace denoiser to the scene. I'm going to type in RT denoiser and bring that into the scene. I'm going to turn off the refine render. I'm going to connect up the RT denoiser. So when you connect up the RT denoiser, the first thing is the scene still is noisy. And the reason for that is because you have to enable it. We're going to enable the direct denoising and we're going to enable the bounce denoising. So now both bounce denoising and direct denoising are enabled in the scene. You can see that when I rotate the camera, the scene is denoising as I'm rotating it. So this is a real-time ray trace denoiser, and this is what you should be using in your projects. So all the reflections, all the lighting and all the shadowing are being denoised in real time. So now we've had a look at setting up ray tracing in a simple scene. Let's look at setting up ray tracing in a more complex scene. So we're going to reopen the Range Rover scene and have a look at that and have a look at how it's set up. Okay, so we've opened up the Range Rover scene again. So we're going to look at how this scene's set up and how all the ray tracing nodes are working. The scene's obviously running real time using the ray trace nodes. We've got the ray trace skylights enabled. We've got the ray trace mirror reflections, and we've got the ray trace denoiser. And the reason they're running well is because they've been set to optimal settings in the ray tracing settings. So I'm going to run through those. I'm going to show you how they're working and show you how to get the settings optimal so they can run in real time. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the skylights. The environment map's going into the skylight, and then this is generating all the light throughout the scene. We've got ray tracing turned on, and as you can see here, the ray tracing samples are on 1. Now if we play the scene and we change the ray tracing samples to something like 10, you can see the scene starts to lose frames. And this is because the ray trace samples are now ray tracing 18 samples per frame, whereas before it's 1 per frame. And this obviously has quite a bit of an overhead to the actual frame rate. You can also see that the lighting and the shadowing aren't much more refined than with the single sample. So if we turn that back down to 1 sample, then we can see it's running again at a decent frame rate. Now the next thing to look at are the mirror reflections. And the mirror reflections have their own denoising and refinement checkbox. When you turn it on and off, you can see the smaller details and things like the metal are getting slightly more refined. There's less noise and aliasing on these surfaces when you toggle this on and off. The sample clamp for the ray trace reflections is on 21. The default is 1. If we look at that, you can see that the scene's reflected nicely at 1, but we want to just push it that little bit more, so we ramped it up to 21. So the next thing to look at is the environment map attributes. So this is the environment map that's been piped into the RT mirror reflection. All of these attributes are related to the environment map and the HDRI image. So the environment map brightness, if we take that down, you can see the environment map's not reflecting as much. If we take that back up again, the environment map's reflecting fully again. So this toggles on the environment map specular. So if you turn that on and off, obviously the environment map specular turns on and off. And this is the environment map filtering. The next thing to look at is the ray trace denoiser, and this is probably the most important thing to look at in the scene. As you can see from the scene, it's noisy at the moment. And when you press play, the noise goes, so the ray trace denoiser is enabled. So what does the ray trace denoiser do? Before we look at what the denoiser does, we have to understand how ray tracing works. Ray tracing is where rays are cast throughout the scene. These rays bounce off the surfaces and they generate lighting, shadowing, and reflections throughout the scene. To make ray tracing a viable option for real-time graphics, the number of rays has to be reduced. And in reducing the number of rays, the scene becomes more noisy because you're actually able to see each individual ray. So that produces a lot of noise throughout the scene. So this is where we have to use the ray trace denoiser node. The ray trace denoiser doesn't actually control the denoising itself. It uses temporal and spatial filtering to reduce down the denoising by blurring and filtering the noise so it's less apparent. So let's have a look at how this node works and how these parameters affect the scene and how the parameters affect the speed of the scene. First thing we'll do is look at what the scene looks like when we turn these filters off. So if we turn both filters off, you can see that the rays of the ray tracing show up. And when we turn them back on, obviously the rays go. So we're going to look at the direct lighting denoising first. We're going to stop that. I'm going to rewind it. So the diffuse spatial filter iterations are set to 2 at the moment. If we put those up to the max, 20, the scene will run slower. It's halved its frame rate count. So obviously to be optimal, we need to reduce this down. If we stick it on 0 and restart the scene, you can see that when it plays, it takes a while for the scene to become less noisy. If we take the diffuse spatial filter iterations up to 2, and then we restart the scene again, you can see it becomes less noisy a lot quicker. So setting it to 2 is a good optimal point. If we set it to 4, it'll be quicker at denoising, but it'll be slower in the frame rate. So we've set this to 2. We've also got the diffuse temporal filter. This is how much temporal filter is applied to the direct diffuse lighting. If you change this, you can see how much that's affecting the actual noise on the diffuse spatial filter iterations. If you turn it down, it gets noisier. If you turn it up to 1, it's less noisy. We've also got the diffuse max refinement iterations. This is set to around 1000, so this will limit the amount of refinements to 1000. We've got the diffuse movement sensitivity. So when this is playing, this will determine how sensitive the direct diffuse denoising is to movement in the scene. Now we get down to the specular spatial filter iterations. That's also set to 2 at the moment. If we take that up to 20, it's going to slow down the scene and the frame rate. So obviously we want to keep it optimal, and the optimal parameter here is 2. And that means it will run at a decent frame rate. We have the specular temporal filter as well, which will determine how much of the temporal filter is applied to the actual denoising. We've also got the specular max refinement iterations, and that's set to 1000. And we've got the specular movement sensitivity, which again is how sensitive the direct specular denoiser is to movement in the scene. Another thing we can do is we can save all the denoiser parameters to presets. So if you have a look at your denoising presets, you go up to presets, we've got motion A and motion B. Currently this is set to motion A, and I can reload that and it will reload all the parameters. So you select motion A, and you can then reload the parameters that were there before. So that will reset all the parameters to what it originally was set at. As you can see, the direct denoising and the bounce denoising have the same kind of parameters. So these filters will do the same thing on the bounce denoising as they do on the direct denoising. So all the bounce lighting will have the same parameters to reduce the noising on it. So at the moment we've got the bounce diffuse specular filter iterations set at 4. If we turn them off completely, at the moment this doesn't show up too much. There's not too much bounce showing up in here. So in this scene we can actually turn it off, which will improve the performance, and you're not really going to notice much change. When you're denoising ray tracing, the main thing is to find a balance between the ray tracing parameters in the denoising and the frame rate that you want to get. It's also a matter of deciding what looks best, what you can get away with to make the frame rate run. There's no magic numbers that you should be using in the denoiser. It will be based on a per project basis and what you need for that project to run properly in real time. So it's down to the user to decide which are the best parameters to apply to their project and when. And now we've had a look at all the ray tracing parameters in this project and how it's set up. Have a go at applying them to some projects of your own, and let's see what you can come up with. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and please look out for the next Notch tutorial.